I know UCLA hasn't started it. Yeah, but other colleges have started. USC has started, that's for sure. And he was want to thank everybody that came for the Shabbaton and thank everyone that didn't come for Shabbaton. But we did learn something new that you have to put in the list who's going to come in the morning, who's going to come at night. Because we had like close to 40 people at night. During the day was only 15. I was expecting everybody to come. If I knew more people would come at night, I would bring the fruit stand at night. I had no idea. But anyways, it was a very good Shabbaton. I heard a lot of people enjoyed it. Everybody enjoyed it.
It was
Thank
good.
God. Awesome.
Good. Yeah.
Anyways, for Bezat Hashem, we're going to learn a little bit about Rosh Hashanah, right? We're going to see what happens in Rosh Hashanah. How could we get all the blessings in Rosh Hashanah? Bezat Hashem. There's actually this past week, the parsha that we learned was parsha of Nitzavim. The parsha that it means you're standing today. Nitzav means to stand. Now, without an exception, this parsha was always read on the Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah, right? Like this year. Every year is like this. So what's the reason that we have parsha of Nitzavim always before Rosh Hashanah? So the simple reason, that halacha brings, and we're going to compare the simple reason to actually the deeper Kabbalistic reason brought down. So the way it's explained in halacha is that 2 weeks ago we read a portion that talks about a bunch of curses. That if Jews don't keep the commandments, it really goes into details what kind of curses will happen. Awful things. Honestly, you don't want to look at it. Like a bunch of diseases one after the other. People are going to be such bad hunger, they're going to eat the meat of their own children. Like really disgusting, very horrible curses. So the rabbis say that we didn't want to read curses right before Rosh Hashanah. It's not pleasant. So what they did is they put the curses 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah, and the week before Rosh Hashanah we have the parsha of Nitzavim, so to make an interruption between the curses and the New Year. Right? We don't want to have the curses right before the New Year. But that's a simple answer which is 100% correct, no question about it. But then there's actually an explanation which is based on what the Baal Shem Tov says. The Baal Shem Tov and also other Kabbalists, they say that whenever a parsha is read at a certain time, it has a connection to the time that it's read. There was a big Kabbalist called Rabbi Yeshayahu Horowitz. He lived, I think, close to like 300, 400 years ago. So he actually says anytime you read a parsha, it's not just by accident. It has a connection to that time that's read. Therefore, parsha of Nitzavim, which is read before Rosh Hashanah, is not only to make an interruption between curses and the New Year. There must be a connection between the two. What the connection is soon, we're going to see it. Another question that we're going to discuss very soon, and then we're going to answer them both at the same time. You guys know what a Shabbat Mevarchim is? It's the last Shabbat of the month. Mevarchim means you bless. On that Shabbat, you bless the new moon. So you have a special prayer every Shabbat before the new moon, talking about a Jewish new month. So you give a blessing that Hashem should give us a happy month, lots of money, happiness, everything. The only month which is an exception, this past Shabbat that we start Rosh Hashanah, we don't bless the new month, which is like a little bit strange. If any month needs a blessing, is this month of Tishrei, because in this month we get judged for the rest of the year. So of course we need a blessing for this month, that God should give us a good month. Because Rosh Hashanah is not only for the month of Tishrei. Rosh Hashanah is something that decides our entire year, but we don't bless it. Jews are always strange. They're not normal, as you know. Whatever Jews do the opposite. That's normal. I'm just kidding. That's absolutely not true. What we do is a normal thing. But anyways, we have to understand both reasons why. So the first question was, what's the connection of Parsha of Nitzavim to Rosh Hashanah, and why don't we bless the month of Tishrei, which is the first month of the year? So one of the answers that they give is that really this week's portion, it is talking about Rosh Hashanah. The reason why Nitzavim is read before Rosh Hashanah, because there's a hint in there about Rosh Hashanah. What's the hint? It says in the beginning of the portion, it's going to be very easy, guys. I know I'm saying a lot of Hebrew words, but it'll be a lot easier. It says, Atem Nitzavim Hayom. Today you're standing. What is today hinting to? So simple terms, that was the last day that Moses was alive. And Moses makes a new covenant with the Jews that have to keep the Torah once they enter Israel. In the desert, it was very easy to keep it. They had nothing to do. The whole day, man came for them, Everything was taken care of. So when you have nothing to do, of course you have time to be religious. No, not so hard. The challenge is when you have to go to the land of Israel, you have to plant, plow, work 9 hours a day. So then maybe you're going to say, I'm too tired, I have no time to be religious. So Moses made a new covenant that they have to keep the commandments once they come to Israel. So Hayom means the last day that Moses is alive. That's a simple explanation. But the Shalah, that Kabbalist, it says Hayom means the day of Rosh Hashanah. Right? So it's actually hinting. When it says Atem Nitzavim Hayom, you're standing today, means you're standing on Rosh Hashanah. How do you know Hayom means the day? It means Rosh Hashanah. How do you know that? So there's actually a verse. You ever heard of the book of Iyov, Job? J-O-B, not Job, Job. No. So over there, it's talking about a person that God really tested him very, very harshly. He was a righteous man, but he tested him to the utmost. He lost his wife, his kids, his health, and then he did not lose his faith, so God repaid him back. He got remarried, he had much better kids, he had a lot more wealth. So over there, it says, on the day that he was judged by Hi Hayom, that day came. So the word Hayom is used. Like this week's parsha, when it says Atem Nitzavim Hayom. What does Hayom mean? So the translation, which is done by a very, very holy rabbi, lived in times of the Mishnah, it says Hayom means the day of the great judgment, which is Rosh Hashanah. So when it says in this week's portion also, Atem Nitzavim Hayom, today you're standing, means you're standing in front of God on Rosh Hashanah. What does Nitzavim mean, you're standing? What's the normal word for standing in Hebrew? People that speak a little bit Hebrew?
La'amod.
La'amod. You don't say Ani Nitzav, you say Ani Omed. But here God says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, Atem Nitzavim, not Atem Omdim. So one of the answers are, Nitzavim means that you're standing victorious. So this is the blessing that God gives every Jew, that when Rosh Hashanah comes, you're going to be victorious in the judgment. So now you see the connection to Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment. And it says, Atem Nitzavim Hayom. Today on Rosh Hashanah you're standing. How are we standing? Nitzav means you stand victorious. That's a blessing of God. Every Shabbat before Rosh Hashanah, every year, God gives us a blessing that He wants us to be victorious. We're going to win the judgment of Rosh Hashanah. But you know, God doesn't give anything for free. Right? At least not to the Jews. He's very Jewish, doesn't give anything for free. They say, Jews never win the lottery because they have to work hard for their money. They don't get anything free. Even in Israel, as a joke, Arabs win the lotteries. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Of course, Jews win it. But anyways, so since God doesn't give anything free, and that's not because He's tough, He's bad, because He trusts us that we can earn it. And I'm saying it's not like, okay, you're a bunch of good for nothing, bunch of naughty kids, but I'm so nice, I give you whatever you need. No. God says, I know you're good human beings, you can deserve it. So now what can I do to be victorious in the judgment of Rosh Hashanah? It doesn't come for free. So if you look at the continuation of the Pasuk, when it says every Jew stands in front of God, it counts 10 levels. It says, Roshechem, your leaders, Shiftechem, the leaders of the tribes, the men, the women, children, even converts. So it says all these guys are standing on Rosh Hashanah, but it says one word in the beginning. All of you stand. It says Kulchem. And then it says the 10 levels. So isn't that a little bit redundant? If you're counting the 10 levels, these are all the levels amongst the Jews. So why do you say Kulchem, all of you? Right? If I'm going to say every single name of a guy sitting here, I don't have to say again all of you. I said all your names. And if I say all of you, I don't have to mention your name. Here the Torah says all of you and the 10 levels. So here the Kabbalists explain the word Kulchem, all of you, means you have to stand united as one. So the condition of having a good year when Rosh Hashanah comes, God says when He's Kulchem, when every Jew is actually, all of us are united, unity will, as we say, President Bush, united we stand, divided we fall. I don't know if you guys were old enough at that time, but the Twin Towers, when they attacked, they blew up, that was when, 91? No, 2001. 9/11, 2001, right? So it's 21 years ago or something, 22 years ago. So the saying at that time was, when the whole world united against terrorism, so they were saying, united we stand, divided we fall. It's actually taken from the portion of the Torah. God says, if you want to stand victorious, to stand, it has to be Kulchem. You all have to be one. And that's a blessing that God gives us. This explains why we don't bless the new month. of Tishrei, because if God is giving a blessing, what's my blessing worth? Nothing. If God himself is blessing this month, he's blessing us that we're going to be victorious if we are united, so then there's no reason that we should give the blessing. It's actually disrespect. But we bless the other 11 months of the year because we get the energy from God. Is that clear, people? Now, how could we stand united? Have you ever guys seen some weird guys in school? Correct? I go to high school, so many times. You find people that I'm not saying they're strange. In our judgment, they're strange, right? So therefore, we make fun of them. How could I be his friends? I'm not even part of the circle. So let's say people that we think are more inferior or they seem to be inferior. How could I come to love him? How could I be united with him? Really, it's a very, very big challenge, especially today's society. The division that's amongst people, even amongst non-Jews. It was never like this. That there was so much hatred. You look at politics, right? Anybody in public school? You have gone through public school? If you would support Trump, what would they tell you?
No.
You're scared to tell your teacher that you support Trump because it's going to give you an F. What did you do wrong if you support Trump? Nothing. What do you wrong if you support Biden or Hillary? Nothing. But the division is so much that you're scared in school to say that you're a Republican. In California, at least. And in New York. I don't know about other places. Correct? Because the division is so much. Not only say like you're retarded, you're bad, you're evil. How could you even, support somebody that is such an evil person? That's the way it is. So how could I really come to be united with somebody else? So guys, we're going to bring an example. This is a very, very beautiful thing. But if you get bored, let me know. I don't want to just continue talking about the same thing. But something very beautiful is said that we can actually see it from our body, from our physical body. We can learn the concept of unity that you have to come to love, even someone that seems to be inferior from us. I'm not saying he is. Maybe he's higher, but it seems to be inferior. Where is the highest place of a person's body?
The mind.
The brain, his brains, his head. The lowest part is the heels standing on the floor, right? That's absolutely true. The Gemara actually calls your heels the angel of the death of your body, meaning the least amount of livelihood is in your heels. And the way they prove it, you can put your heels into boiling water, into hot water. You don't feel it that much. Try to put your face into boiling water. You can't. So one of the things that explain, because the amount of livelihood in the heels are so little that is insensitive. Hot water doesn't burn it, but the face is so sensitive. There's so much livelihood in there, so much life force. That is hard to put into hot water. But there's three advantages in the foot over the head. Maybe there is more, but there's three of them that they bring it on actually in Torah books, in books of Kabbalah. First of all, if you want to go to a certain place, your brains can't walk. Your feet take you. So for the head to get to the intended place, he needs the feet to walk. For the head and the body to stand tall, you need to have healthy feet. If somebody, God forbid, is paralyzed and he can't stand on his feet, so he has to lay flat on a bed, then the head and the foot are on the same level. Now, sometimes a person has to draw blood to get healed. Somebody had a headache. I think in the olden days, they didn't have any Tylenol. So one of the ways to get rid of, I'm talking about really old days, hundreds of years ago, one of the ways to take care of, to get rid of headaches, they would have to draw blood from the body. Drawing of the blood maybe takes the swelling. I'm not a doctor, I don't know. Ask doctors. So that took away the headache that they had. And one of the things that they draw blood with was leech therapy. They brought leeches that actually sucks the blood out of the person. They still do it in Far East. There was a video, if you go to leech therapy, they put the leech in the back of the guy. And then this little worm just blows up from sucking blood and lets go after a while. In the olden days, they used to put the leeches on the heel. And once the blood was drawn, the headache went away. So what do we see from this? That actually through the heels, you heal the head of the person. So these are the three advantages that the foot has over the head. It takes the head where it wants to go. It makes the head stand tall and actually brings healing to the head at the same time. These guys are on this side. These boys won't hurt you, I promise. I'm here. I won't let them. Unless they're going to hurt me first. I hope not. I'm a weak guy. Anyway, so now with looking at every other human being is the same way too. You know, there are people that are heads. There are people like Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu. He's the head. You had people that were the heart of the Jewish people. That was like, Aaron, the priest. And you had Jews that were the heels of the Jewish people, the lowest of the Jews. But Moses was actually, he was able to see the advantage in every Jew. Even the Jew that's a foot, like the heels, he has a certain advantage that Moses didn't have. And that's why the Torah says Moshe was the most humble man on earth. How could Moshe be such a humble person? He's the only one that spoke to God face to face. He was humble compared to me with somebody else. Doesn't make any sense. So you know what the answer is? Because Moses was able to see the advantage in another Jew. And just like the brain can't be complete without the foot that takes him to places, Moshe saw the advantage of that foot Jew, so to speak. That's why he felt humble. For the brain to be complete needs the feet. So Moshe Rabbeinu felt that it needs the other Jew to become complete. You get that? And that's what really the Mishnah means. You have to be humble in front of everyone. There's actually a Mishnah that it says, "Havesh faruach bifnei kol adam." You have to be humble in front of everybody. Now there are two words for humility. One word is anav. Anav means humble. But all that means is you're not arrogant. I might be a big professor, I'm not arrogant. Because God gave me a better head. I was raised in a family that they gave me education. This guy didn't have such a good head, wasn't in a family that, they were able to provide him with a good education. So all anav means that I don't feel arrogant. But shfal ruach means that you feel worse than the other person. You feel the other person is higher than you. How could I feel that? Same answer. Every human being has an advantage that I don't have. And his advantage makes me complete. Anybody wants to be a garbage collector when they grow up? But imagine no garbage collectors, what would happen? You wouldn't be able to live in the city, it becomes a garbage dump. So do I have the right to make fun of a garbage collector? No, because without him, the whole environment becomes garbage. So again, those people usually are not educated, they sit behind the car, maybe they don't even talk nice. Nobody wants to be that, but again, they're good people. We need them to have a good society. That's what they call them, what is it called? Sanitation Engineering Department.
Sanitization.
Sanitation engineering. They're engineers.
Who's that? The garbage?
The garbage collectors, they're called Sanitation Engineering Department.
Oh, they went to school and stuff.
I don't know, but they just call it that to be. You can't say garbage collector. It's not nice. But again, it's the idea. Don't look down on them. They're doing something which is very, very needed and something very, very beautiful. Is that clear, people? So this is actually the secret of having a good year when Rosh Hashana comes. If you want to receive the blessing of God, to have a good year, it says in the Parsha, Atem Nitzavim Hayom, is only through unity. If you're united, you'll definitely have a good year. Clear, people? Anyways, that was one thing that I wanted to discuss with you. Have any questions? Please, guys, talk. Because we got to stop, latest by the quarter to 9. We got to go eat something. Otherwise, we're going to starve to death, God forbid, Anyways, any questions? No? So we're going to go to the next part. Actually, this is going to be more of a halacha, but it's important. Everybody's very smart here. Imagine you invest, you buy a lot of property when land is very cheap, right? And then suddenly there's a huge surge. Rents go higher, right? Or the properties go higher, and then you sell it or you rent it out, you make a lot of money. But imagine you buy it at a time that the real estate is very, very high, and then you have a crash afterwards. 1994, many people lost a lot of land because they bought it when it was very, very expensive. And then 1994 was after the huge earthquake that was in California. Really, houses fell down, and people could not rent it or they couldn't sell it. They lost a lot of it. But imagine people that bought properties years before, they were very, very dirt cheap. And then after a few years, wow, was a lot of money. So investing at the right time is very important, right? You invest at a good time, you make a lot of money. You invest at a bad time, you lose a lot of money. Same thing in Judaism. There are times that if you utilize it for the good, you really invest a lot. And then there are times that every moment is important, don't get me wrong, but the investment is not that much. So here actually the Baal Shem Tov explains, when it comes before Rosh Hashana, the last 12 days, Now we're holding only 5 days before Rosh Hashanah. The last 12 days before Rosh Hashanah, they're very, very special days because each day corresponds to a month. So basically, let's on the 18th day of Elul, today is the 25th. So 8 days ago, when it was the first of the 12 days, if somebody, let's say, would utilize the days like he actually utilized the entire first month of last year. So we have another 5 days left. They say another point, this Friday, which is actually the last day of the year, if you utilize it for the good, you elevate the entire year. Any mistakes you made is fixed up. Let's make a very, very practical example. Imagine somebody did not really put on tefillin the entire year. Just imagine. If he's going to put on tefillin, really being sorry, and he puts on tefillin this Friday, is as if he actually fixed the mistake of the entire year. Isn't that amazing? If somebody's going to say, I don't care what, I'm going to study half an hour Torah today, on Friday. It's like he actually studied the entire year, that half an hour. So these are actually the days that if you invest in Judaism, in doing God's will, it's not just that you did it that day. It actually accomplishes a lot. Also, the Arizal says something similar, a little bit different. Guys, how many days is between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur?
Like a week.
No, there's more. The week you're right, but no. 10 days, right? It's called Aseret Simei Tshuva. Take off 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, you're left with 8 days. Take off Yom Kippur, you're left with the 7 days that you said. Now, why did God design exactly 10 days? 2 days are Rosh Hashanah, 1 day is Yom Kippur, and you have 7 days of the week in middle. So the Arizal says because each day of those 7 days corresponds to each day of the week from the previous year. So let's say if the Sunday, Rosh Hashanah is Shabbos and Sunday. If the next day, Monday, I put on tefillin, it's like I put on tefillin all the Mondays of the year. If you keep the Shabbat in that week, it's like you kept the Shabbat of all the entire year. It's very, very powerful days. So the reason why I spoke about it, again, Rosh Hashanah comes, I know college started, we are running, here and there. There's enough distractions in this world. In California, in today's society, there's, honestly, you could sit and just waste 15 hours on cell phone. Anything you could see. Internet, whatever, I don't know, your emails, videos. So when it comes to these days, if you utilize it for good, you're fixing the entire year. Please, guys, utilize Friday. Definitely make sure you put on tefillin, make sure you study a little bit of Torah. If you guys sometimes go to shul, make sure that you do the 3 prayers. Mincha, Arvit, Shachar, is as if like you prayed the entire year. Very, very important. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of mitzvot, which is actually very important to do on Erev Rosh Hashanah. You ready, guys? Friday? So we say you do whatever mitzvah you can. One of the things that people really do, everybody based on their income, is you've got to try to give some charity, at least to a poor person, if possible, or somebody that is studies Torah the whole day on Friday. Give a little bit of charity. We're going to talk about the importance of charity, what charity accomplishes. You ready for that? Ready, guys? Let's see what charity accomplishes. So there's actually a verse that King Solomon says. It says, Tzedakah tatzil mimavet. Tzedakah saves a person from a death decree. If God forbid there's a decree of death on someone, from heaven I'm talking about. But if somebody gives charity, it will nullify it. It will neutralize it. There's actually a story that supports that. Could be I said that story once before. I'm not really sure. But the logic of it, first of all, why would charity more than any other mitzvah annul a death decree? Because when you give charity to a poor man, you gave him life, or to a poor woman, doesn't matter. You gave him life. Without me supporting him, without us supporting him or her, she wouldn't have food on the table. She wouldn't be able to pay his rent or her rent. So the money that we give to a poor person enables him to live, gives him life in simple terms. So God says, in return to that, you're going to get the same reward. Measure for measure, you're going to have a longer life. Or it's going to get rid of a death decree. So there's actually a story in the Talmud or a Medrash that's brought down. Rabbi Akiva had a daughter. So on the day that his wife gave birth to the daughter, he was walking out, but he was very happy. And then an astrologer, stargazer, sees Rabbi Akiva. And he says, I saw in the stars, you had a daughter today. Yeah, he says, yeah, I did have a daughter today. He says, I see in the stars that your daughter is going to die on the night of her wedding. So Rabbi Kiva was very sad, obviously. But every Jew has a faith. Stars mean nothing. A Jew is connected above the stars because you're connected to God. So therefore, whatever stars and constellations say, if you're really connected to the source, which is God, it could change. Doesn't have to be that way. But he forgot about this story. So the night of the wedding of his daughter comes, and then after the wedding is over, they go to sleep. So Rabbi Akiva goes the next morning to wake up his daughter to go to the synagogue or something. And then when he knocks on the door and the door opens up, I guess the husband went to synagogue earlier. You know what I'm saying? I always tell girls, please sleep a lot. Because once you become a mom, sleeping is luxury. Because your kid wouldn't let you sleep. And if the kid lets you sleep, your husband will let you sleep. So please sleep now. It's a joke, by the way. I don't really mean it. The reason why your husbands don't let you sleep is because they snore. Right? Whenever if I sleep on my left, I don't snore. But if any other side I sleep, I snore. So now my wife is used to sleeping with my snoring. But in the beginning, it used to disturb her. Say, turn around. So I said, turn around, no more snoring. So sleep right now. Not now, I don't mean in the class. Once you get married and you become a mom, no more sleeping. Anyways, so it goes to, wake up his daughter. But I'm saying that because even if your kids cry, the husband turns the other way. Men don't do anything unless you put a leash on their neck and they pull them. They're lazy people. I'm just kidding. As a man, I could say bad things about men. I can't say bad things about women. You need a woman for that. But anyways, putting all the jokes aside, so he comes to wake up his daughter, and he sees there's actually a snake on the wall, and there's a pin in the head of the snake. So what's going on? So daughter says, I don't know, last night was dark. I was, fixing my hair. After the wedding, I took this pin and I just stuck it in the wall. So it was actually a snake coming up. She didn't know anything. She just stuck it in the head of the snake. So Rabbi Akiva said, right then he remembers what the astrologer said, that on the night of the wedding, your daughter is going to die. Understood there was a decree for the death. So he says, my daughter, what did you do last night at your wedding? That actually you were saved. You must have done something very special. That the snake didn't bite you. Things changed. So daughter said, I didn't do anything special. I really do nothing. So then when the father insists, she says she remembers she did one thing. Guys, in New York, when you go to religious places, and this custom used to be all the days in Jewish history. I guess we don't have it today. I'll tell you why. But they used to have always a table by weddings for the poor people. People that were uninvited, but they were really poor. And I can't put him a special, table at the head of the banquet hall. Did I say something funny? No? Anyway, so what happens is they used to put like a table at the end of the hall for two reasons. First of all, there are uninvited guests. And the more important reason for them not to be embarrassed. It's at the end, nobody sees them. And they'll put all the food. The reason why we don't do it today in California, because everybody crashes anyways. And that's what I made up. I don't know if that's the reason. But anyways, you have it for the poor people. So the daughter says that last night a poor lady came and there was no food on the poor people's table. So I saw she was very hungry. So I was in the middle of dancing. I left the dancing place, the dancing floor, and I brought food for her. She remembers she did that at the night of the wedding, the night before. So Rabbi Akiva said this is exactly what Shlomo HaMelech says King Solomon. That tzedakah tatzil mimavet, if somebody gives charity, right, to a poor person, that annuls a death decree. That's why the snake didn't bite you. So these are, one of the things that we see, again, on Erev Rosh Hashana. This Friday that's happening actually fixes the entire year. If you know somebody, a family who's in need, and today, these days, what a poor person is? Someone that cannot afford to pay his own rent. I'm not talking about people that have, houses that the mortgage is like $20,000 a month. I'm talking about regular people that pay $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is. A two-bedroom these days goes at least $3,000 in Encino. One bedroom is at least $1,900. So someone that can't pay his rent is considered to be a poor person. Unfortunately. He might make $2,500 a month, but he can't pay his rent, so he's poor. If you know families like that, that they need help, whatever, definitely, any way you can help them. It's a big mitzvah, first of all. Secondly, it's as if you gave charity the entire year. If you can do it, on Erev Rosh Hashanah. I mean, don't wait till then. If you know somebody now, help them now. But especially if it's done on that day, it's a very great thing. We're going to go through another story. This story is actually brought down in the book of prophets. Anybody knows who Nebuchadnezzar was, right? Nebuchadnezzar, of course, the emperor of whatever, in Babylonia in those days, Assyria and Babylonia. He was superpower. He's the one that destroyed the first temple. And then he took all the Jews to exile. Very, very tyrant. For him to become cruel, he would take rabbits and bite off their head to become a cruel person. I saw it one time, on the YouTube, they were showing these terrorists. How did they get the heart to hurt people so much? You know what the terrorists do? They would take a mouse and bite his head off. I saw it on YouTube. Delicious for them. But again, that's how they became very cruel. So Nebuchadnezzar was a very cruel person. So one day he had a dream. His advisor was Daniel, the prophet. He's one of the young kids. At the age of 14, he took him to Babylonia from Israel. So he had a dream that there was this huge tree. And this huge tree, actually, there was a lot of birds that they made their nest in there. These guys, let's pay attention. And not only that, all the animals were under the shade of the tree. Then a big axe comes from the heaven. And there's a heavenly voice, cut the tree off. So there's a little bit of a stunt coming out of the ground. And there's a chain, and it attaches this, the trunk of the tree to the earth. And it says for 7 years, this tree will feed itself from the grass of the ground, just like the animals, for 7 years. So he gets up in the morning, he's devastated. What's the meaning of this dream? As you know, if you look at history, they say important people like kings, when they have a dream, the dream is not just nonsense. It's something that has to do with the people, with the society, at least with them. I'm sure you're familiar with the dreams of Pharaoh, right? 7 fat cows, 7 skinny cows, 7 years of plenty in Egypt, 7 years of famine. Again, a king who's a leader of the entire country, the dreams that he has, a lot of times are true. So he calls Daniel and he says, what's the meaning of this dream? So Daniel thinks and he prays to God. So it was revealed to him, he says, this huge tree is you. And all the birds and the animals that were actually under your shade, or they were making a nest in your tree, are all the nations that are subjugated to you. If you're the tree, so all the animals and all the birds are the other people that are under your rulership. And he says, because you have been very sinful, so God, what he's going to do is going to cut you off, meaning that you're not going to be a king for 7 years. That's when the axe cuts him off. And what does it mean? That you're going to be attached to the ground and you're going to eat from the grass of the ground for 7 years. He was telling him, it means is you're going to lose your mind. You're going to become insane. You're going to feel that you're an animal, and simply you're going to just live with the animals in the forest, and you're going to eat the grass. So now Nebuchadnezzar gets scared, because he knew whatever Daniel says is 100% true. He was a prophet of God. So he asked Daniel, what can I do to avoid this punishment? So Daniel knew that all the Jews in that time, they're poor. They had no money. They were in exile. So it says, Chata'echa, your sins, you should redeem by giving charity. So the next day, Nebuchadnezzar, when he woke up, he told his people, his servants, open a door to my palace, and I'm going to announce any poor person that wants to come, he's more than welcome. I'm going to give him money. And he did it for an entire year. No punishment came, because he gave charity. After a year, he became arrogant. He says, well, am I crazy? All the money that my ancestors, my parents, myself, I'm going to give it to these, whatever, loser Jews. I'm not going to give it to them. I'm a bunch of losers. These are people that are in exile. So he stopped giving them. So in the book, if you look at, it's in the book of Daniel, it's already translated into English. So it says that time that he stopped, he became insane. He lost his mind. For 7 years, he went and lived in the forest. No haircut, no cutting the nails. I don't know how he lived. He simply lived like an animal for 7 years. And he was suffering. So after 7 years, God granted him his brains and he went back. And he sent letters all over the world where he lived that the only true God is the Jewish God. But what do we know from the story? Because he gave the charity, right? that decree was annulled for 1 full year, as long as he was doing it. I'm not here to collect money, believe me. Don't give no donations to the synagogue. I'm not asking for that. But again, if you know a poor family, somebody that needs it, especially on Friday, which is the last day of the year that could fix the entire year. If you know any family, guys, could be $10, could be $15, right? We actually blew a lot of money. Thank God our parents are mostly well to do. For us, it's no big deal to go to a restaurant and spend $25 one night. According to Bidenomics, Bidenomics, $50. Did I say it right? Bidenomics?
Yes.
Yeah. Whatever he says, the opposite is true. He just said that he was the next day after 9/11, he was by the Twin Towers. And then they checked, he was in Washington, D.C. But he thinks he was by the Twin Towers. Anyways, let's not make fun of our president. Putting the jokes all aside, please do not forget to utilize this Friday, guys. Is very, very important. Please, all you guys, take upon yourself to put on tefillin, study a little bit. If you know a poor family, give them a little bit of a charity. And Be'ezrat Hashem, God will look at every small mitzvah. Remember, it's a day of investment. It's like, real estate is dirt cheap. You're going to buy it, and then the next day is going to go skyrocket. Erev Rosh Hashanah is a day of investment in Judaism. Whatever mitzvah you do is like you did it the entire year. Basically, we're going to stop here, guys. But I'm just going to finish with one last story. The Kukuriko story, right? I said already. The chicken noise. No? Okay. The reason why I'm going to go back to the first speech that we gave, that we said you have to find an advantage in every human being. That's how you become humble. You're going to actually love him. So the stories with the Baal Shem Tov, in his time, there were a lot of villages that they didn't have 10 Jews. So when you don't have 10 Jews, you don't have a synagogue really. So how are you going to pray? You have to pray in your own home. Now it says in Halacha, when it comes to Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, if you live in a village that there's no minyan, there's an obligation to try to go to the closest city or village to pray with the minyan for Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. So there was one kid that was totally ignorant. I'm telling you, he knew less than anybody in this room. He couldn't even say the Shema. Everybody in this room knows how to say Shema Yisrael at least. He didn't know anything. He was an orphan, nobody taught him anything. And he was actually taking care of chickens. So since the fellow Jews are getting in a wagon, go, he says, where are you going? Well, we're going to city of Mezhebush where the Baal Shem Tov is, because there's a minyan there. And he says, I'm Jewish too, can I come with you? Of course, Jews help each other. So they put him on the wagon, they get to the Baal Shem Tov around Yom Kippur time. Now guys, what's the last prayer of Yom Kippur? Last prayer of Yom Kippur. First one is Arvit, then is Shachrit, Musaf, Mincha. What's the last prayer? What? Starts with the N. Nun. Ne'ilah, exactly. Ne'ilah means closing. It's the closing prayer. So, that's the most serious time. Righteous people see if all the bad decrees are annulled or not. I was by the Lubavitch many times myself. We would see by Ne'ilah would cover his face with his talit. It looks like he was crying because he would take his napkin and wipe his eyes. And then at the end, whatever, he used to get happy. But honestly, these righteous people know what's going on. So in terms of the Baal Shem Tov was on the Ne'ilah, the closing prayer. The Baal Shem Tov is not just lifting his talit, he's crying. People knew that there's something bad being decreed in heaven. So they get serious, they pray. Now this kid that doesn't know anything, he raises chickens, he wants to pray too, doesn't know what to say, he doesn't know anything. That's what I'm saying. I don't think he knew how to say the Shema, because if he knew, he would say the Shema, say what you know. So I was thinking, how could I join these people that are praying? And he says, God, I want to give you a special prayer. I don't know anything except chicken noise. Now what's chicken noise? Depends which language you speak. In Persian it's kukuliku. In English it's kakadoodle-doo, and in Hebrew it's kukuriku. Right? Whatever you go. So it says, I'm going to make such a good chicken noise, and please accept it as my prayer. I just want you to imagine, you're in a very serious place, right? The only place that we really get serious when we go to a funeral, God forbid, right? Imagine somebody in the middle of the funeral stands and he makes cow noise. Moo. What would you do to this guy? Shut your mouth, people are serious. So now look at religious Jews. Ne'ilah, the most serious time of the year, the most serious prayer of Yom Kippur. This guy seems to be a little bit abnormal, and he makes noise of a chicken. Everybody was ready to kick him out. Just simply lift him and throw him out. So then the Baal Shem Tov takes off his talit and he says, no, let him be here. Because there was a lot of bad decrees this year, I saw it in heaven. And as much as I prayed, I couldn't annul it. This kid, because from the bottom of his heart, really from the purity of his heart, he said, he made this noise, the decree is gone. Now let's compare Baal Shem Tov, one of the highest Jews in that generation, the most ignorant person, one of the most ignorant. This kid that can't even say the Shema, but he was able to do something that Baal Shem Tov couldn't do. So this goes back to the first lecture that we gave tonight, not about Erev Rosh Hashana, that what really brings success to us is to have unity with every Jew. How could I unite with everybody else? That guy seems to be, that woman, that man, that boy, that girl, seems to be like a little bit abnormal, very strange person. Could be, in my judgment. But maybe he's like that kid that is kukuriku, can accomplish even more than what the Baal Shem Tov accomplished. So let's take these two lessons actually to heart. Bezat Hashem, if you have any questions, guys, go ahead. And then we're going to have some pizza. And we have also birthday cake, but the birthday people are not here. So,
It's Avi's birthday. His birthday tomorrow. Tomorrow.
oh, I don't have your name. I'm sorry. I have Ariel and Chantel.
It's close enough.
Ariel, what's your name?
Aviel.
Oh, so just the R is a mistake. Or R is misspelled. Awesome. So we have your birthday to celebrate.
Yes.
Fantastic.